What's up, y'all? Happy Monday. I'm doing this video in response to a question from our free Blueprint Slack channel, which of course you guys can join whenever you want. I'm going to link to it below this video. But the question is about how to get started with virtual assistants. And this is a very important and big topic. Virtual assistants are something that I use and leverage throughout all my businesses. They're incredibly important and impactful if you know how to use them the right way. And that's what this video is going to be dedicated talking about. So I have 9 tips or thoughts on how to get started with virtual assistants. But before I get into that, it's important to note that I do have a full guide on how to outsource work effectively for agencies. It's on my personal website, ryanwashere.com. It's ryanwashere.com/outsourcing. I'll also leave you the link to this underneath this video. So with that being said, let's get into my 9 tips for how to start and hire a VA. So really the first thing is making sure that your internal processes are in line from end to end. So if you're doing SEO, if you're doing web design, whatever that it is, you need to make sure that you have an entire process mapped out from end to end, meaning from the time that you decide to go out and acquire a client, how are you doing that? Via advertising, via organic search, via outbound sales, via cold calling, pushing into the sales process, pushing into the campaign onboarding process, pushing into the service delivery, all the way to the point where that client is no longer a client. What does that process look like? You need to have that entire thing mapped out so then you can understand where your gaps are. And this isn't just for hiring VAs, this is for hiring anyone. So you can understand, hey, if you're just getting started as a consultant, where it is that your time maps to what you have to do. And then by understanding what those gaps are, you can start to figure out where you're going to need to hire some additional help. And of course, VAs are a great way if you're just getting started because they're low cost and you can hire them to do very, very specific tasks. Whereas if you're hiring local talent here in the US, generally, the trade-off is that overseas, you don't have real-time communication. The language barrier might be a little bit tougher. Whereas if they're here, they communicate perfectly. They're in your office every day, but you've got to spend a lot more time working and training a local person. Obviously, they're more expensive as well. But generally, offshore or VAs come with a very specialized skill set, whether that's data entry, Excel work, outbound sales, or graphic design. They usually come trained. You just have to train them within your process, within your framework. So that brings me to point number 2. Once you have your entire process mapped out, again, from client onboarding all the way to the point where they're no longer a client, or whatever it is that you're doing too, this isn't just for agency services, because the example that I'm going to give you is not for agency services, it's for running my personal business. But you have to understand what is worth doing versus what is worth not doing. So what is not worth your time versus what's worth your time? When you're first getting started and you have no money to spend, everything is worth your time because that's what you have. You might have to work 24 hours a day, but you've got to put in the time to get it done until you've got the resources to invest back into your business to hire people or to pay for software or to pay for contractor support. And using VAs is very specific because, again, you want to give people, I like to break it down versus thinking versus doing. I like to have my local people or myself be the thinkers and my offshore VAs be the doers. So, for example, when it comes to SEO, I'm not going to give a VA an entire SEO process. I'm going to give them a piece of the process to do. I'm going to let myself or my local team do the thinking and the strategy, the communication, and the dictating and delegating of what needs to get done. So you have to have a firm grasp on what's worth your time. This is just something that comes with experience being an entrepreneur, of knowing what to do and how to spend your time. I'm not going to talk about that here. I've got other content that talks about it, but it's incredibly important that you know the value of your time and what you should be working on every day and what's not worth your time. And it's worth more to pay somebody to get that done for you because ultimately that's going to increase your overall productivity, which is going to raise your overall revenue and cap of your business. So it's just a trade-off that you have to start to understand as you grow and scale as an entrepreneur, what's worth your time and what's worth getting off your plate. And as you grow and scale, you're going to realize that most of the stuff that you're doing is probably worth getting off your plate and hiring somebody else to do it so you can focus on high-level strategic initiatives that are always going to be pushing the business forward, not spending your time doing things which are ultimately detracting from the business because it's just busy work. It still needs to get done, but it's worth paying somebody 5, 10, 15, 25, even maybe $100 an hour to get that done because your time is better spent doing much higher level things. So that brings me to point number 3, which is to give your virtual assistant a piece of the process, not the whole thing. So I promised I was going to give you an example of how I'm using VAs right now. I have about 10 to 15 that are supporting us in some way, whether that's for the agency or for my personal stuff. So for my personal stuff, I'm publishing a lot of content on Instagram, probably at least 1 or 2 posts a day plus stories, and they're all done. They're not just filmed with my cell phone. They're edited. They've got captions on them. They've got titles on them to make them look nice and to grab people's attention. And that's something that's not worth my time to do. For me to sit down, film a piece of content, edit it, put up a graphic, put up the title, put up the captions. That's going to take probably upwards of 3 hours of my time. That's not worth it for a single organic Instagram post, which is not going to increase my business, right? I'm using Instagram as an overall long-term strategy to increase brand awareness, increase reach, just get people in my ecosystem, get people familiar with who I am and what I do. But it's not going to be worth my time if I have to spend 4 hours a day editing content. So I built a process end to end that allows me to get 2 pieces of content edited and created every day and published to my Instagram account. So what I had to do is first start by mapping out what that looked like. It started with ideating the content topics, editing the videos after that, then cutting the videos up and putting up like titles on top of them, then putting up like a background, then putting on captions, and then uploading and then writing the copy. That whole process I had to map out, and I had to understand again what my time was worth doing versus what it was not worth doing. What it came down to, the only thing worth my time was coming up with the content topics and then filming them and then passing the rest off to VA. So what I did was, instead of again getting a VA to go out and say, okay, you need to edit this video, you need to add captions, you need to do the graphic design, you need to write the copy, I got 3 VAs to help out and support along that process that are all specialized in that specific area. So number 1 is editing. I hired a very specific VA who only does video editing. Then I hired a graphic designer to go in and put on like the backgrounds, put on the titles, and then add the captions. And then I have another VA who's uploading and writing the content. They're a writer. So I have 3 VAs supporting that process, which again is costing me around probably like $50 to $100 per Instagram post, depending on the length of it in terms of their time. But understanding again that I'm willing to pay $100 per Instagram post, that's up to $500 per week, $2,000 a month just to manage my Instagram account, because I know and I believe that that $2,000 is well worth the investment in my overall business and the future of the business. Again, as opposed to saying, well, I could do this for free myself. But if I do that process myself, then I'm detracting from other things, which are actually generating way more than $2,000 per week for my business. So I have to understand, again, how and where to pull those levers and what's worth my time versus what's not worth it. And this is one of those things where I know I need to be on Instagram. I know I need to be active there. But me physically putting all my time and attention and effort into it is not going to return the same cap that, going out and focusing on sales for my agency is, or other things along that nature. Sorry, my dog is going crazy down here. 1 second. Get out of here, buddy. So point 4 is about how to hire and where to hire them from. I use Upwork. I've always used Upwork. Freelancer.com is great too. It doesn't really matter where you hire them from. It's more about you. Again, it's about the process that you have, and then after you hire them, what you do with them. So point number 5 is about after you hire them, make sure that you give them what I call a sandbox to play in. What that means is that you build them a test ahead of time, and during the interview. So what I like to do is I like to build a test or a dummy environment ahead of time. So if I'm hiring a web designer, what I'll do is I'll say, hey, go design me a page, and I'm willing to pay them for their time, whether that's up to $100, $200, $300, whatever it is, to get that done, so I can test them ahead of time so I know that they're even capable of getting the job done. After that, then I'll put together a full test in the scenario, and I'll hire 3 or 4 of them at the same time off of Upwork, and I'll just hire the best one. I have the saying, well, everyone has a saying, the cream always rises. And by giving 4 or 5 VAs a different test that are all doing the same thing, you're able to then pick the one that's doing the best right off the bat and hire them. So point 6 is after they've been hired, what I like to do is put together a very short description via Google Docs, also a checklist of just, hey, this is the exact process that I need you to do. Here's the overall process. So again, going back to the Instagram video editing, I give them the whole process. I then show them, highlight what they're going to be doing, and I give them a checklist. And then I'll do a Loom video just like this, where it's an overview of the process. I show them how to do it. That's very important. Show them exactly how to do it. Don't leave anything up to the imagination when you're using VAs. Don't be like, hey, I'm going to be doing video editing. Edit this video. I give them specific examples. I send them content that I like how it's done, and I tell them why. Again, this takes some time up front. This takes a couple of hours to put this stuff together. But when you're thinking about the long run, again, of if I'm posting 5 pieces of Instagram content a week, and it takes 3 hours to do each, that's 15 hours right there a week. That's 60 hours a month. Sorry, I'm terrible at math. 60 hours a month of my time. So putting in 3 hours of my time to put together the exact process that needs to get done for them is going to save me a ton in the long run. It's also going to save me a ton of headaches. And again, where a lot of people break down with VAs is they give them too much responsibility, thinking that they're an expert in your business. When you're hiring them off some website, they have no idea, no context. If you don't give that to them and then work with them, and then the next point here, point 6, is train them. Again, it's not enough to just hire them and give them a process. You have to continue to work with them throughout the process. So once you assign the work with them to them, you need to make sure that you're training them, that you're working with them, just like you'd be training and working with any local employee, right? For me, it takes me upwards of 6 months to get a local employee trained. virtual assistants I'm able to get done within a matter of 2 weeks, because again, this process of giving them a highly specialized and focused thing to work on, and then giving them a sandbox, and then doing continuous videos. And I like to put them in our Slack and project management system. That's point 7. So they can get in and communicate in as close to real time as possible with us, so we can give them the feedback needed on their work. And then once they're trained, then they're kind of like on autopilot, right? So that's our goal, is to get them into our ecosystem, get them using Slack, get them using our project management system, get them tasks assigned to the point where, again, once they're trained, and it takes a couple of weeks. So for another example is for our agency right now, I'm using a VA for content marketing to help us generate content topics. That's a very difficult thing to do. I can't expect them to come in and just give them one video from the blueprint training, expect them to know. So the blueprint training serves as the baseline for everything, but we still do training on top of that, because we have to work with that specific person to get them trained up. So again, I use a lot of Loom videos. Basically what I'll do is I'll get them in our PM system. I'll get them doing a task. If it's generate 10 topics for content marketing, I will then spend my time going through them with a Loom video and correcting everything, and then sending that to them and having them go back and do it again. So it takes time to get them trained up. But now, after about a month of this, they're now running a lot smoother, and they're able to operate basically in the background without me having to check it. Then I can go through and check it and spend 10 minutes my time checking it and send that to the client, and it's done properly. And the amount of time that saved me is immense, but also the level of profitability in my business goes up, because I'm paying somebody a lot less to do something that's very high margin for our business. And I'm still putting my time and effort into it, but only a fraction of it, only 5 to 10 minutes to check it over and then communicate it back to the client. So it's incredibly important that you figure out a way to manage your VAs with as close to ongoing communication as possible, because generally what's going to be happening, this is point 9, the last one here, is that they're not going to be in real time. That's the biggest downside, is that you're probably going to be hiring somebody who's at least a couple of hours of time zone away from you, maybe even 12, which means you're basically going to have a day lag in communication getting things done. So what I like to do is use weekly check-ins via Slack. What I'll do is every Monday, I'll just hit the /remind. And what it will do is it will tell everyone in that channel, whether it's my dev channel, design channel. Again, we've got VAs that are in all of our channels here in Slack. And it will tell them to, hey, give me a weekly update on what you worked on last week, what's still open, what you have planned for this week. And then the third thing is what I can help you with. These 3 things, again, it's not so much for me to be spying on them. It's the fact that if I have 15 of these people doing stuff, I can't use one-to-one communication with them because it's too much. So I'll hit this automation feature in Slack, and allows them to stay on top of their tasks too. So it's just as much as them as it is for me, because again, if you let anyone, not just VAs, go unmanaged, they're going to do their own thing, and it's never going to meet your expectations. So you have to make sure that you're consistently staying on top and staying in touch with these people, so that way they're able to get their job done. And again, it's not about playing Big Brother and spying on what they're doing. It's about productivity, making sure that they have everything they need to get done that week. Because a lot of times what you might find with VAs too is they're a little bit shy. Their English might not be their first language, so they're going to be afraid and maybe a little bit bothered to ask you, because they feel like they're annoying you as a business owner if they have a question about something to get done. So it's important to keep the lines of communication open, letting them know, hey, you're with us, you're part of our team. You're not just something that we're kicking work to. You're an important cog in our general system here in our business, and we care about you, and we want you to do well. And that means if we have to put in some extra time in communication, we're happy to do that. It's our job to make your job as easy as possible. So that's kind of my Kanban here of the 9 tips that I would give you for how to get started with hiring and managing and scaling your VA usage. Again, they're incredibly important. They play a big part in all of our businesses. We use them for very specialized tasks across everything, but it's very, very important that you follow the tips here given in this video. Also, make sure to check out the blog post where I break this down in much more detail if you're looking for agency-specific outsourcing. As always, guys, if you like this video, or if you're listening to this on the podcast, please leave me a review. Please like the video. Please comment. The more that you do that, the more it inspires me to do more content, because it boosts my rankings up and allows more people to come in and see this stuff. And it makes it worth my time, again, because when I talk about the value of time, me sitting here on a Monday morning shooting a video might not seem like the best use of time, but it is the more that you guys interact and engage with it if you like it. So as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.